Get the coolest mesh online at mesh.alfred.vip.
Here in South Africa, white people are the minority, only making up 7.3% of the population. Donald Trump recently said this.
It's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about.
After that, the president of South Africa, as well as the United States legacy media, has been denying these claims.
There was Afrikaner farmer genocide. I can bet you these three gentlemen would not be here.
Liar! I traveled across the world to hear for myself the untold stories of Afrikaners and white farmers in South Africa.
Trump is not misled
at all.
He's speaking the truth about South Africa. They can deny it as much as they want to deny it.
That they've now become cowards.
So in this video, we are going to understand what it is like to be white in South Africa, and let's understand what they are calling the reverse apartheid.
But what's happening here is worse than apartheid. It's a disgrace.
There's been robberies at our house. I've been attacked.
My own father nearly died under a farm attack.
They don't want to acknowledge that all these things are happening because then they have to take responsibility.
I had to take him to hospital with 25 stitches in my head.
Well,
The United States just opened up a refugee program for Afrikaners, and 70,000 people have already expressed interest. And since 1985, 600 to 800,000 people have left.
So we have one law on the
And these are productive people. These are people that should have added to the economy of South Africa. But South Africa has kept kicking them away. This is the funny thing about racism and quote-unquote black people who don't know that they too can be racist. They apparently end up being the most racist people the world has ever seen.
this farm. Do unto others that you would like to be done to yourself.
there's a lot of racial laws in South Africa against white people.
Black economic empowerment. They added a few B's to it as well.
But we have about 800,000 white people that are at the moment has got no work.
There's also this false narrative that if you don't like the government now, it means you want apartheid back.
Very important to get the people's dignity back.
They want to have land reform without compensation.
At the end of the day, it's not a Trump that's going to help us. It's Jesus Christ himself.
Now it's specifically directed against the white race, against people who look like us.
I think you Americans got problems.
Also, would you please make sure that you are subscribed to my channel? Let's go.
And keep in mind that these all man-made problems. And this is the same. When a movement is not led by Christ and there's no love in the movement, it ends up becoming evil. And whatever is set out to destroy, it ends up eventually becoming worse than what is set out to destroy and becomes worse for the world. Someone can start a movement with good intentions, but when Christ is not in it and love is not your driving force, it turns into a problem. Look at the cultism in Nigeria. It was started by Wole Soyinka starting pirates to fight, the white colonialists. But because of no Jesus, the man doesn't believe Jesus or follow Jesus, and it wasn't led by love. It is all about, oh, these people have wronged us, oh, we have to get back at them, and there was no love, no compassion in the movement. Look at how it devolved into the whole cultism situation we see in Nigeria. Then when it comes to things like the African American situation, injustice were done against, quote unquote black people in the past, in America, thus the civil rights movements. But the civil rights movements, even though some of its key leaders were Christian, like Martin Luther King, and of course what people don't know is that Malcolm X was not part of the civil rights movement, but people want to clump them together. The Malcolm X branch is the Nation of Islam branch, and they hate white people and have always taken up a position, with the Minister Farrakhan and that Elijah Muhammad chant. So they have always hated white people, so they have been clear. But the whole bundle of thing has turned into a black power hates white people thing, and all our problems are caused by white people. Anywhere anything negative or anything bad happens to anybody that's quote unquote black, it is because of white people. So that situation, and because the whole thing had no Jesus in it. Jesus was completely removed. The church was removed from the whole civil rights situation. The church is not the leaders of the civil rights situation. It's liberal educationalists, liberal intellectuals, so-called intellectuals from the universities, the quote-unquote black universities, that took charge of that whole thing, and it spiraled to what we have now, that leaders are BLM, and the that is partnering with Antifa, and the LGBTQ gang, which is all sponsored by the George Soros and the leftist cerebrals. So we see how God was completely taken away, love was completely taken away from that movement. So what do we have? We have hatred. It ends up becoming something worse. Now it's all about being racist to white people, and that is going to turn into a bigger problem, because all the racism towards white people is not going to go ignored. As a matter of fact, when it comes to race, when you pray, God is more concerned about the white people now, because they are the ones that are on the receiving end of the receiving of racism, the receiving racial treatments.
Yeah, KFC. So you probably don't really come out like this much. Big intersection, the light's not working. Street lights, yeah. Oh, there's lots of blackouts, right?
Yes. Our generator's in for repair, but as soon on the schedule, we should be okay.
And when the lights are out, do you treat it like a four-way?
Yeah. This is the one shaking you down.
Yeah, these
Oh.
right here.
Shaking, and then I start talking, and then they want money, or they tell you they want iPhone.
And are they armed?
Yes, and they're not afraid to exert excessive force. Every month it gets incrementally worse.
As soon as I arrived, I began an interview with an Afrikaner author and commentator, Dan Root. We're here in South Africa. What's the truth?
I think the truth is that, when you're talking about genocide, it's sort of, define it in various ways, I think. And there was that American expert, Gregory Stanton, who compiled, the 10 stages of genocide, and it starts off with, say, hostility, and then it moves on to organization. I can't remember exactly each stage, but I mean, we are sort of at the stage now where there's a lot of hostility, say, from this political party, this extremist political party called the EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters. That's an out-and-out kind of Marxist revolutionary party headed by a man called Julius Malema, who goes around, singing the song "Kill a Boer, Kill a Farmer" to these large crowds. So that's very concerning.
So these people, when you want to hit them hard, go after a white man.
We require no permission. Revolution demands that at some point there must be killing. Kill the poor, the farmer. Shoot to kill. Kamaza. Kill the poor, the farmer.
So quantitatively, okay, millions of people have not been killed in South Africa, at least not yet, but qualitatively, we've had such extreme violence and torture and during these farm attacks, but in South Africa it's moved completely to the left, so if you say we want equality for white people, that's considered a far-right statement, so the Overton window is completely to the kind of, if you say kill a Boer, kill a farmer,
that's like middle.
That's kind of, that's sort of, that's acceptable kind of thing.
That's
according
crazy.
to Overton's principles, it's sort of mainstream. It's mainstream. A political party in parliament could say that.
Like stadiums of thousands of people.
Exactly. The highest court in the land, the Constitutional Court, has stated that is just freedom of speech. But if you use some sort of racial epithet, they would send you to prison for 3 years.
If saying kill the boy is freedom of speech, imagine somebody saying, kill the, if they say kill the white, kill the quote unquote black man, or kill the African, or they use the racial slur like kill the monkey. Imagine what will happen to that person. The same law that said kill the boy is freedom of speech. It's not going to say the same thing about the person who says kill the monkey. But you can see how now everything is being done by quote-unquote black people to ask for a race war, to push for a race war, to beg white people to be racist towards quote-unquote black people.
This video, we had many insightful conversations. Some were very descriptive and long, so you can get the extended version by going to my Patreon. The link is in the description. Thank you so much to these Patreons for your support. Now let's get on with the video. The next morning, we headed out to the Voortrekker Monument located in Pretoria, South Africa. We are here at a monument that represents the Blood River. After they signed an agreement on the land, the Zulus told them that they were going to have a celebration, and during that celebration, they killed all of them, all of these women's husbands. It tells the story of a Voortrekker who negotiated a land treaty with the Zulu king. However, he then betrayed them and killed 100 of the Voortrekkers. We were also told that this story was so horrific that they had to tone down the images to be more PG. To me, this really sounds like it was a story of betrayal. This architecture is very...
Why doesn't anybody tell this story? This is an interesting and a powerful story to tell. They should tell this story.
Very beautiful. This is incredible. There's this huge circle here that is the ceiling from down below. It's just crazy that it's open like this. It's kind of scary. It's very impactful. So we just finished up here, and I just wanted to say that I personally find it pretty tragic that they tried to make it work, they tried to live together, and it just ended in a literal bloodbath. One thing that they've been telling me is that complacency kills. And if someone is beginning to rob you and you're just like, okay, here, take all my stuff, and you just allow it to happen, then it's just going to escalate further. Get ready for the Jubilee. Hurrah! Hurrah! We'll give the heroes 3 times 3. Hurrah! And what I believe that this monument really shows and really proves is that no group is 100% innocent. White people can be marginalized, persecuted, as well as killed in the masses. It is just so sad that there's this huge narrative that we're not allowed to talk.
I may write a song about this.
Talk about white people being persecuted. This is not a conspiracy theory like the media tries to make us think. This is a fact. I find the way that this monument is built is very spectacular. It almost looks like it's somewhat in a pyramid shape, and it also has a feel like a church. It's also very sad. Also, I'm really getting this impression that it's really killing and affecting the people's morale here, the Boers, the white Afrikaners, because even if they get a college degree, it's not going to count. They don't have job opportunities because of how far the DEI movement has gone. Plus, even if they do have a job, they're going to be paying taxes that the black people are not paying. And so they're just really, in a sense, getting eaten alive. And sounds like a lot of them feel like there is not a lot of hope, and a big part of that is because
the reality of the matter is that everything is working against anybody whose skin is white, or anybody who is mixed, or anybody who is Nigeria. If you are not natively South African, you shouldn't be in South Africa, and the international community should recognize the racism that South Africa has for the rest of the world and start treating them that way. You know, shout out to Trump for what he did with the South African president. And, you know, the world should turn its back on South Africa because South Africa has turned its back on the world. You know, if South Africa wants to behave in this manner to everybody else, you know, everybody else should behave in this manner to South Africa when it comes to treaties, when it comes to trade and all of that. You know, and for those of you who are Nigerians, you know, living in Nigeria like me, you know, we need to be real. South Africans hate Nigerians, you know, with a passion like I've never seen. More than white people ever hated Nigerians, you know, in the height of the slavery, you know. But the thing is that South Africans have not yet had the opportunity to kill and deal with Nigerians like others have had. But the hatred is more. And that's a fact. So we can't be ignorant of these things. Because if you act ignorant of it, in the future you end up paying. And we cannot let this be the image of quote-unquote black people. This South African hatred of white people. This is not something we want to teach our kids. This is not something we want to promote as this is what it means to be us. This is not who Africans are. If this is what Africans are, then I am not an African. I do not subscribe to all this hate. It's ridiculous.
Of how this narrative is just being completely shut down and you're not allowed to talk about it or else it's treason. So you're 26 too?
I'm 25.
25.
Yes.
What's your name?
Alzon.
Alzon.
Alzon, yes.
Alzon. And so you're saying that this place doesn't receive government funding?
Zero government funding. The thing is, tourism is a big part of the economy, and this place is, it's a huge part of the economy for not just Pretoria, but tourism is a big thing in South Africa. We should think that maybe the government would have interest in.
If South Africa is this racist to white people in South Africa, the white tourists, you need to stop going on tourism trips to South Africa. And you need to stop promoting South Africa. There's a lot of ignorant people that say a lot of pro-South African things. Ignorant white people that advertise like, oh, I went there, I felt so at home, I felt so at peace, I felt connected to the earth. Dude, the air there doesn't like you, the folks there don't like you. They hate you. They don't want you to be there for long. They just want your tourism money and to go as quickly as you came, but drop as much money as possible. That's what it is.
Giving funds because of the economical impact that it has, the positive economical impact that it has. And it's also history. Mm-hmm. The monument is one of the big monuments in the world. So people come to South Africa, they come to Pretoria to see the monument. Is one of the big things they want to see. So
it's gorgeous.
Thank you.
It's very pretty.
Yes, I also think so. Thank you.
And the view too is spectacular. And it sounds like there's a clash in the narrative. That would be my reason as why they might not be giving it funding, because it doesn't fit a narrative that would make them look in a very good light based on their history.
The history, yes.
It's not a matter of that. You see, they look at it as their right. Because the situation that a bunch of white people hundreds of years ago went to the Zulu king and signed an agreement that they are going to share land. Then after that, he betrayed them and killed them. Keep in mind that to the South Africa, that is their right to do that. Because it's like, first of all, when you look at ancient Rome, a lot of stuff like that was done. There was a lot of betrayal. The South African can bring up, look at America, how's America founded? It's a similar thing that was done with the Native Americans, with the Pilgrims and all of that. However, in this case, the white man was outsmarted by the native. So you can put it, they could sell it that way. There was a lot of hope, because keep in mind, if they didn't sit down to sign those treaties, wouldn't they have fought? And the white man is quote unquote the invader in that situation. He's coming to another land. So keep in mind, they ended up later fighting. And of course South Africa was conquered and most of Africa was colonized like South Africa. So you have to look at all of that. So the South African is looking at all of that. So to them, that monument, they want to bring it down. It's that monument, but it shows so much. It tells so much. It's a full circle story. You have to look at both sides of everything. But that in itself was a great injustice. But those kinds of treason and betrayals were common. So South Africans say, what right do you have? It's not your land. So whatever. Yes, we the idea of honoring that treaty is the white man's culture. The idea of signing paper and honoring it. It's the white man's culture, not the Zulu's culture. So the Zulu did not even break his culture by doing that. You are the one who assumed that he has your culture and he's going to have a gentleman's agreement with you and all of that. I even understand that concept at that time. So you have to look at the full picture, and that's not to take away from the evil and the injustice that were done, because especially if it was white people doing it to quote unquote black people, it will be news everywhere, it will be in every textbook everywhere. But this is not in every textbook everywhere. This is not told. This story is not told, so you have to understand the situation in South Africa. I think it has gone past redemption. The only thing that can help South Africa is Christianity. True Christianity. If it spreads and then through that love, and many people convert to Christianity. Outside of that, there is no hope for anybody who is quote unquote white, who has white skin, or even if you are mixed, there's no hope for you in South Africa. There's no hope. You need to leave South Africa. That is just the reality. The longer you delay, the more you are making it worse for yourself and your ability for your descendants to build a legacy in wherever you are going to relocate to, because it is not going to only a mass Christian awakening where people convert to Christianity, and then there is now love and forgiveness, because love and forgiveness is needed on both sides. In spite of all the fact, a lot of the legal distance, and you have to understand that a lot of people don't look at things logically the way you may be looking at. It's because of who they are, where they stand, and how the perspective and the angle they are seeing things from. The way that somebody standing on a building that is 5 feet tall on one side of the world is different from the way somebody who is standing on a skyscraper at another side of the world looking at the same direction. The other fellow is looking at. They are going to see things completely differently. The point I'm trying to make is that, so in South Africa, and it's like all of you white people here are invaders, and you cause so much pain. So whatever we did to you, we did in self-defense. And that is why they will protect those who are raiding farms and killing white people. Because it's like, you shouldn't even be here. Your being here is a leftover from the colonization of his past. So I'm avenging that colonization. So it's looked upon, your entire presence is a threat. Your entire presence is something that it addresses an old wound that needs to be avenged. Even that is from their perspective, even though when you look at it from a more logical perspective, that doesn't make sense. But from their perspective, that's how they are seeing it. You may not see it that way. So you never owned a slave. Personally, you yourself, you never owned a slave. You never participated in appetite. You yourself may have never had racist thoughts in your life. You have never degraded somebody because of the color of their skin. That is you. But they are not looking at you that way. They are looking at you as, oh, those are those white people invaders, those are those colonialists. This is the trickle down, this is the descendants of the colonialists, it's them. Even if you are somebody that you just came years after the apartheid was lifted and you settled in South Africa, but you're white, it's like all of that situation was made possible because of the colonialism and all of that, and you are feeding into that. You are part of all of that system. So all of you are the enemy. So that is the situation. Therefore, there is no hope for any white person in South Africa, because there's so much hate in the land, in the hearts of the South African. I've explained where all of that is coming from and how they are saying things. So and keep in mind, when God sees this thing, God is a God of justice. So he sees the racism of the South Africans, and he's going to punish them. And certain things they put their hand to do will not prosper because of their hatred. A lot of things will not work out for them. Look at all the opportunities they are kicking away. You can imagine, in spite of all the oppression and racism upon those white people, they are the ones that are bringing in so much tourism that is helping the economy of South Africa. even with all the pushing down the government is trying to do and all the restrictions on all the white people, it is them that are helping the economy. And think about the farmers, they are the ones providing the food for South Africa, but the racist government, and this is the thing about quote unquote black power, the black power racism, it makes no sense. They are now going to end up pushing away those who are productive and to create like what happened in Zimbabwe, and this is the same thing that happened in Uganda in the days of Idi Amin, where he kicked out all the Chinese and Indians. He kicked out the most productive people, and it was only Ugandans. The Ugandans could not cope. The economy crashed, and everything just turned a haywire. It was now immense suffering for the Ugandan people during that time of Idi Amin, because he kicked out Indians. Indians were more resourceful. Indians were more industrious. Indians were just building businesses. So it was a situation where there were shops everywhere. Indians, and they did the same thing with the Nazi Germany. Jews owned all the shops. They were more industrious and more, capitalist minded than the German people. So they prospered. All the businesses, a lot of all the shops were Jew owned. So there was that wave, before the all the taking of Jews to concentration camps started. When the destiny was rising, there was a day, where whether Black Sunday or whatever, they went and they broke down all the Jewish shops. They were breaking all the glass of the Jewish shops and all of that, the German people, So they really attacked the Jewish business owners. And then they made it illegal for Jews to own property, to own businesses, to run for governments in Germany. So all this started before there was a Hitler. So in the same way, the white people in South Africa, this is where it is heading. And you can see people like Julius Malema. Julius Malema might not bring any relevant change, may not improve anybody's life in South Africa. But if he leads to the killing of 20 or 100 or 1,000 or close to 1 million white people, he will be remembered as a hero. And they know that. This is an unspoken truth, but you have to know that this is reality. So it shows you the danger you are in, and not just Julius Malema. Any quote-unquote black South African leader that leads to killing white people is going to be looked upon and raised up as a hero. So that's just something you should know.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stories going around that we wrote the history, so we wrote it in a way that we wanted people to interpret it. They don't like the history actually, so they don't want to fund the truth, if I can say that. Mm-hmm. It's a harsh way to say it, but it is what it is.
To me, it sounds like there's a lot of similarities from what happened, and this was the 1800s, right?
Yes.
And present day.
Yes. So, and because it was black and white back then, there's this whole narrative about the whites taking the blacks' land, and the history here actually proves that narrative wrong, because we traded for the land. If you read the manifest, then clearly it was actually the opposite way around. And I mean,
I didn't even know that. I really need to look into this and learn more about it. I may end up making a song about it.
We don't dwell on the past. I mean, we don't dwell on it, and we don't say, okay, but someone has to pay for...
We can't forget the past so that we won't repeat the mistakes of the past in the future.
What happened then? Mm-hmm. We just moved on. Mm-hmm. We moved...
See the mentality. They want to move on and they don't want to bring up the revenge of somebody has to pay for what was done in the past. But that is not the mindset that the South African or the quote-unquote black man has.
We build, we grow. Well, we try, but we're still growing. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of initiatives nowadays that is also, for Afrikaans-speaking people, and we keep on building, even though they want to break it down.
You're saying that the Afrikaners aren't saying, well, we want justice for what happened, but they are.
Yes.
People are.
Yes, well, there's land reform. They want to have land reform without compensation now. That's what they want now. I'm not sure about the specifics and
Now, from a South African perspective, remember what I said about how and where the person is looking at it from. From your perspective, that is land that you perhaps came, you bought, you worked on, you built businesses on it, or built farms on it, and you built a thriving business on it, or perhaps you inherited it, but you built, and you are working and you are feeding the entire economy and nation from it. So if the government wants to take it from you, what about all your hard work? What about everything? The government has to compensate you at the very least. The government should not even have the right to take it from you in the first place. But if the government should take it from you, the government should compensate you. That is your perspective, and that's how you see it, and that makes sense. That is the part of justice. But for the South African, it looks like that is the white man that came and took this land that was not ours. Now he wants us to pay us. He wants us to pay them. Recompense them for the land that they took from us. We are only taking back what was ours. So that's how they look at it. They don't look at it as you bought the land later, or you inherited it and you've built it and you are feeding the economy with the land and all of those blood, sweat and tears. They don't look at that. They are looking at that. You stole this and made yourself rich. You came and took this that was not yours and made yourself rich. Therefore, it is an insult for you to expect us to, after collecting back what you stole from us, to now pay you for it. That is insult upon insult from their perspective. So that is why I say, I don't see any way forward. Except that there's a Christian movement and everybody becomes, there's a big move of real Christianity. Because there's a lot of watered down Christianity that is not even based on love, that there's no love. When there's a real Christian awakening, people give their life to Christ, they give their hearts, they give themselves up, and they let go of their hatred, they let go of their past, and there's forgiveness. Because forgiveness is needed on both sides for it to work. And then they see each other, instead of looking at saying you are black or you are white, you are human, you are my brother, you are my fellow South African. This is our land together. That can only happen through Christianity, a Christian move at its peak. Not just baby Christianhood, mature Christianhood. Outside of that, I do not see any hope, because, it's not really human nature to be Christ-like and, that's honorable. So for people, we have to die to self. The whole of the nation, like over 90% of the nation, will have to die to self for there to be a pathway forward for South Africa. Now life is spiritual, so things that may seem difficult to man could be very simple and easy to God, and God will just do it so easily, and you wonder, like, how did it happen? But outside of what I said, I don't see any way forward. There's also the way of using laws, but there will still be resentment, but it will be just in booting stage. Using laws, international laws, to pressure, using organizations, UN type organizations and trade laws and all of that to pressure the South African government to treat the white people like human beings too, and Nigerians also, and other people, in South Africa, to treat them like human beings, to treat non-native South Africans as human beings, So there is that, but that will still there will still be resentment, but just pushback and looting, But that will at least ease a lot of problems too.
the laws and so. But yeah, so they say that we stole the land and they want the land back. But we don't want that. Like, we don't care what happened in the past. We just say, okay, well, everyone's living here now. Everyone.
There's a thread of dishonesty in that statement. You don't care what's happened in the past. Then why are you working at a monument like that? The past is very important. You can't say you don't care.
We came here, we settled, people from a lot of countries came and settled here, and the land originally was actually, the Bushmen were actually, or the Khoisan, they were actually the original tribes that lived in South Africa. And they are, there's very few of them, and they also don't have a foot to stand on now.
So the whole conversation of like who was first is a little bit irrelevant.
Yeah, and we don't think...
This is a good point, that South Africa was first, occupied by the Bushmen, the Khoisan, that is, of course, Bushman is a white, word to describe it, but, that tribe is now almost extinct, so that is the reality. Everybody was conquered at one point, so all this claim, even the Native Americans, they killed people to get that land, so that is just the reality of the story of humanity. There have been a lot of wars and shifting and migration and all of that.
I think it actually matters.
Yeah.
We think what matters is now. I mean, you can buy your property and you can do whatever you want with it. So
They say that South Africa is one of the most unequal countries in the world. What is it like as a white South African?
it's hard. You really struggle to get a job. You really struggle to get a job in South Africa. If you're a white male,
you can't get a job because of equity. And this is what people need to understand. Why people like me, when I criticize DEI, and then there are people who say cool and all of that, because I understand what DEI means. DEI could work against you just because you may fall into a category that it may favor now doesn't mean it will favor you tomorrow. Even if, for example, you are LGBTQ and DEI favors you now, you don't know what DEI will entail because it's not based on your merit. So your hard work and all of that doesn't matter. It's just based on. It is basically another way of repackaging communism in controlling who works where. Because communism is government control of the factors of production, how to produce, what to produce, and when to produce. So DEI is a clever way to create an equity system where the government assigns, you can't get a job. Now the government decides if you can work. And based on your demographic, not based on your qualification, based on what category that they have decided to put you in. You are in this group. We have enough of those who fall into this group or this category. Now we need this percent of this. We now need this percent of this. So the government is deciding. So it is just an introduction of that. It is a repackaging of a strong element of communism within a capitalist society. That's what DEI is. So because of DEI, if you're white, why would they hire somebody who is white when there are people who are South African? When the white man nationally in South Africa is looked upon as the enemy, is looked upon as the invader, is looked upon as the colonialist. You are here, so his very presence is you are the enemy. And in a world where there is a lot of let me be the biggest victim and the white man is the oppressor, the white man that lives in South Africa, that stays in South Africa, is the one who fits the bill of the biggest oppressor. So they will keep on creating laws that oppress and target white people. So instead of trying to make their country great, they are focusing on how do we punish and how do we get revenge against white people for the whole colonialism situation that happened.
even, some of the most high qualified people, they don't get jobs. We have the BEE and the BBEE. There's a lot of racial laws in South Africa against white people, not even Afrikaans-speaking people. Not just the crime. There's a lot of crime as well, and there's the chanting of "Kill the Boer." They don't. It's Julius Malema's the person who he's raising all this violence, and no one.
People should learn from history. Whenever there's somebody that exploits people, that exploits hate, people like Julius Malema, it never ends well. Look at Minister Farrakhan, and do your research on somebody called Yahweh bin Yahweh from America. From way back in the day. So all these people, Elijah Muhammad, their followers, it never ends well for their followers. They end up exploiting their followers, they end up becoming richer, they end up becoming dictators, and they never do something that is a net benefit for the community or for the nation or the world. That's for sure. So Julius Malema is never going to, because too much hate is there. And it's all about manipulation and manipulating hate. It's very easy to get people to hate than to love, sadly. And that is also something that only Christianity can cure and reverse and create a situation where there is a shake, like why you hating, why you pushing at hate, So that is something you have to keep in mind.
Does anything about it, but if you go and you can say literally anything to a black person and they will put you in jail. They will put you in jail if you call them, I can't say the word because I'll go to jail. You can even act a little bit racist, and if you're a white person, you'll go to jail. Yeah.
Would you consider becoming a refugee?
Not actually, no. Like, even though it's hard in South Africa, the system doesn't work, the education doesn't work, the roads it doesn't look good. There's potholes.
Haven't improved anything?
No, it gets worse. There's no electricity. You have load shedding. Now they want to put taxes on solar systems, which I heard.
I'm a minister.
Which is crazy. I wonder where that idea is coming from, because there is a governor in Nigeria, an Igbo governor, who wants to put taxes on solar systems, which is crazy. Because, and that's the thing, you have to get to the point where you realize that taxes is about making life difficult for people and controlling people and keeping people poor. A lot of these restrictions that the government is putting, especially on business and government, is to make people poor. Why would you tax solar? The person has bought his own solar system. Isn't that weight off the national grid? Why do you have to make money off people that have built their own independent, self-sufficient energy supply? So it is crazy. The nation cannot provide electricity for the people. The people create solar systems. Now the government want to tax that. What is the point? What does that mean? What is that even? It is just plain evil. And this is why it's important for Christians to be in politics. More important than having plans of building church. A lot of churches and ministries, general overseers have had plans of expanding Christianity by just building church. So they build church everywhere. Church. I am not against that. But I would say there are better priorities. There are more important things. One evil person becomes the governor and ends all your churches. One evil person becomes the president and puts one or two laws that cancels out all your churches. Look at during the lockdowns. Could you go to your church during the lockdowns? How? Because the evil people controlled the laws. The devils is Satan children that are in the World Health Organization, is Satan children that are running the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, is Satan children that are running the UN. Rather than all this energy that we are putting into building churches, we will make more impact in taking over the world for Christ by building schools. Let everybody come, both the world. When they come to our schools, the same way people go to secular schools and they leave Christianity and become secular because these professors are teaching LGBT and secular things, let us invite everybody, Muslim, Buddhist, atheists, all of them, come to our schools. We don't even need to call it a Christian school. But when you come, by the time you are through, you will go back tongue talking, speaking in tongues. We need to build schools. We need to be the ones that control the UNICEF, the organization that decide what textbooks schools study. So we can put Christianity in the textbooks, in the math textbooks even. Keep in mind that all these things, if I'm saying it and it sounds radical, this is what Obama did with Common Core. He put LGBT and all of that. In the maths textbook, in the word problems, they will put LGBT-friendly examples and pro-LGBT stances. It's intentional. They put aptitude tests that that students must take, that are based on, it's like, we are trying to make you a better human being, we are trying to teach manners. But what they're actually trying to teach you is how to treat LGBT people, how to embrace it. You have to believe, if someone comes to you and says they're a man in a woman's body, you have to be polite, you have to agree with them, you have to, it is terrible, if you disagree with them, and all that. So they put all of that in the educational system. We need to put Christianity in the educational system. We need to be the ones. Look at wokeness. 2 giant companies control majority of everything in the world because of they own the shares. Concord, Vanguard, and there are actually three major funds like that. But let's deal with Concord and Vanguard. Those 2 companies, American companies that own share. I think if I recall the other one's name, it's quite popular. Our BlackRock, yes, BlackRock. The other one is BlackRock. BlackRock is the third one. Concord, Vanguard, and BlackRock. Those 3 companies own majority of all the companies in the world. They have bought all the banks, bought a lot of companies, own a lot of subsidiaries, own a lot of land and all of that. So now, those companies have put laws in place where, since they own all the businesses, now they have put, for company culture, the company has to have diversity, equity, and inclusion. And for you to get loans in a bank, it now matters. It's now part of quote-unquote social responsibility. Social responsibility has nothing to do with profit and business. How is it on the balance sheet? But social responsibility is a way to control how people think and how businesses and corporations act. So imagine if it was a social responsibility for every business to be pro-Christian, to support Christianity. The gospel will be preached in 1 second to the whole world, cover everywhere. Imagine it was part of the social responsibility of a company to have a fellowship in every company, that during break time, they will have time for prayer, that when you come to work, it's part of your social responsibility. When you come to work in the beginning, just like in some companies in China, the first thing you do is you exercise. When everybody comes to work, they do some exercising and stretching that is good for the health. What about you put, as everybody comes to whatever office you are in, you pray. And then at the closing of work, you also pray. And then you have in between, the first break for eating, after eating, you make it a Holy Communion situation. So basically, every break period in the office is part of the office culture, it's part of the corporate responsibility. And since you are doing it through a company like a Vanguard or a BlackRock, and it's measured, the diversity points and all of that. So you create Christianity points, Now we have a situation where there's communion, a communion service, a 5 or 10 minutes communion service where everybody eats together in unity. And you pray, and the sharing of the word, or perhaps reading of a daily devotional, whether Rhapsody or whatever, you read some daily devotional, have fellowship. Imagine doing that. Can it be done? Yes. The devil is doing other things to put LGBT and all other kinds of things in the corporate world. So there are other places for us to focus our attention, our energy. We focus so much attention as a church on building churches and leave everything else for the devil. The radio belongs to the devil. Everything on the radio belongs to the devil. Every once in a while they may put Christian songs. The people that are talking, the radio presenters, are they Christian? Do they have the word of God? Do they have the wisdom of God? But yet they are controlling, they are teaching, they are inspiring, they are changing how the nation thinks about the policies and the government. Policies that will affect everybody's life. With their suggestions, with their view of what politicians are doing. Imagine if every political situation, in the country, on the radio, or on the news presenter, on the CNN and on the BBC, was a Bible-believing Christian who had rhema, have insights. So when a politician asks, they prophesy and they tell you the future and tell you what the politician plans to do and tell you God's word on the matter and tells you the way of love and what to do. Imagine how much better that impact would be. So those are spaces we as Christians need to go in. And until we go into the space and control the spaces, there's so much change that we will not be able to pull off in this world.
In the Lichtenburg Klipkerk, where the Lorraine spots attack the English in 1900. So we come out of Lichtenburg now. You know what?
Yeah.
No, somebody's got to stand up now. This is just too much.
Yeah, I agree.
You know?
True. But we also have to stand up ourselves.
Yeah, no, for
You
sure.
gotta get some backbone back.
You must come to Lichtenburg and you will see how we stand up.
I will.
Yeah, you must see. We stand up. We stand strong. Every
Talk now is going to come off wrong, and it could be clipped and misinterpreted. We stand up and stand strong. Stand up against who? So now you are now making it sound like this is why people standing up strong against black people. So from that perspective, remember what I said, where the person is saying from. You are saying it from I've been oppressed, which is true. And I'm standing up against being oppressed. I have my rights. The government can't keep making laws against me to oppress me and all of that because I'm white. But from their perspective, it's like, wait, the white man is saying that, the white man that came, colonized, took land that wasn't his, oppressed our people and all of that. Now he's opening his mouth to say that he's standing up against us. When all we are trying to do is take back the land that belongs to us. All we are trying to do is be successful. The white man should go back to where he came from. And that is the peaceful solution, or he will die. So that is their perspective. So you have to be honest with yourself and look at things from standing in the shoes of the person you are dealing with. You see? And that's why I said I don't see any solution moving forward except for a big move of Christianity, true Christianity, where love becomes the order of the day, and comes into people's heart. People give their life up to Christ. And, that will now make it possible for people to let go of the past and, forgiveness on both sides. And it is no longer you are white or you are black. It's like we are all South Africans. That's how it will be. Until that happens, I don't see, a way forward in this situation.
month or so, the EFF wrote on right on the horse.
It's insane.
If the Afrikaans, if the Lorraine. This is the world we live in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And then you got to clean it all up.
Yeah.
And
So Trump is not misled.
at all.
He's speaking the truth about South Africa. They can deny it as much as they want to deny it. But if you really, and I'm not political, I'm a Christian leader. But if you really look at the facts, I'm a committed Christian.
Yes.
Covered under the blood of Christ.
Amen.
But I'm come out of Afrikaner background. So I'm not
racist.
Yeah, I'm not a racist.
But apparently we are.
No. Yeah, I came out of Kobere, Port Elizabeth, and I had a congregation 9 o'clock in Afrikaans and 11 o'clock.
And keep in mind, these people have been here for generations, and their bloodlines have been here for generations. As much as, and if you want to be fair and honest with it, if an African American, the quote unquote black people in America can call themselves Americans, why can't these folks call themselves Africans, South African? Because it's the same time frame. The same time frame of colonization and slave trade that happened. It was that time, when the quote unquote blacks were taken over to America and other parts of the world as slaves, that these white folks came, originally. So it's the same time frame. And now these are their descendants. So the same way the quote-unquote black American has the right to call himself an American, in the same way the white South African is South African. But it is not going to be looked about that way from the perspective of the native South African, like I've said. Especially in this world where they are pushing for it's okay to be racist if you are quote-unquote black. If your skin color is dark, it's okay to be racist.
Many nationalities. So I'm not a racist.
No, we're not.
But what's happening here is worse than apartheid. It's a disgrace. Really, it's a disgrace. It's worse to destroy your own people like the government is doing. That's what the apartheid.
Yeah, they're definitely decimating us on
Yeah,
all levels.
on all levels. So now we hope, we are very proud of the President Trump, and what he's doing.
You were saying that they're going to tax solar panels?
Yeah, so there have been this stuff that I've heard. They wanted to put taxes on solar panels, and there's a lot of people that get solar panels because the electricity system isn't working properly. There's not enough electricity for all the South Africans. We get load shedding. There's even load shedding that there's power outages for 12 hours a day, as in some areas, and people.
And that's bad for business. Of course, it's worse, way worse in Nigeria.
Get solar panels because your business has to go on. You can't do business without electricity in South Africa. You have to have Wi-Fi and power, and so business must go on. So people, they're making plans for alternative electricity, and then there's also generators. You have generators, but the fuel prices keeps on going up, so that's another problem. And
I think that a lot of African leaders don't know how to run a nation. A lot of African leaders are speakers. They are politicians who know how to talk, but they don't know how to run a business. They don't know how to run a Fortune 500, much less a company. You can't employ somebody who's never owned a business to run a nation, because a nation is a business of the most complex kind. So it's sad. A lot of African leaders, they are voted in based on because of what they see, and in the case of Nigeria, because of who they bribe and how much bribe they have to give. So there's that. And of course, in the case of foreigners picking their favorite African leaders, picking who they want to be an African leader and making a person a leader, that is also based on sponsorship and who they put money behind. And of course, creating rhetorics in the media to demonize the opposition they don't want, so that it is the leader that will be the pawn, that will be the leader of the African country. And the West have done that. Keep in mind that the same, when we talk about those whites in South Africa, the whites who run things in the globalists hate these whites. They are the ones who are pushing down this rhetoric, because the reality of the matter is that the media in Africa is controlled by white globalists. So, and this is where we have a conflicting of interest, and this is why we must be honest across the board and not pick sides and understand things, and also have space for forgiveness so we can move forward. You cannot ignore a lot of these problems are coming from the white globalists. Like for example, what is CNN's take on the treatment of white people in South Africa? CNN is white people. It's America. The Americans, the Western world. What is BBC's take that all of this is not happening? BBC, CNN, the globalist white people in this in the Western world hate the white people in South Africa. They hate the white South Africans. So keep that in mind. What if they were to favor them? What if they were to like them? What if CNN was to, others were to come from the top that, we have to point this out as discrimination. So, like, for example, what Trump did to the South African leader, Ramaphosa, imagine CNN supporting Trump. Imagine BBC supporting Trump. Imagine the whole, the whole leftist machine and their cronies, even online, like, the treatment of white South Africans is wrong and all of that. Then it will actually make people, it will actually make the South African government now go back. And then when they bring up questions like, why don't they arrest Malema? Why hasn't there been any recourse for somebody coming out and say you should kill an entire race of people, kill the boys and all of that? Now, it's now become South Africa, if we now be like, we are against what Malema did, blah blah, and then we are going to bring in Malema for questioning and for investigation and all that. That the rhetoric will change and things might get somewhat better. So this is an interesting thing that I didn't even see initially, but it shows you the power of the media and who currently pulls the strings. If the white people who run things in the Western media and who control things in Africa through their reach of media, through the politicians they own, through the systems they have built, through all this, if they were against the genocide of white farmers in South Africa, the genocide of white farmers in South Africa would stop. So we cannot ignore that reality, At the end of the day, we Christians, all we have is each other, and we must stick together, and stand for what is right, and we must advance, because when we do, anywhere we don't spread into, it's only darkness that is going to come from that place and destruction, as you have seen.
They wanted to put, that's what I've heard this day, speaking of putting taxes on solar panels. Because if you have solar panels, you don't pay Eskom anymore.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So it sounds like it's just getting kind of worse.
It is getting worse,
Yeah.
Definitely, yes.
Now, I was wondering about morale, and because you were saying if you go to college, you're not going to be able to find a job, even if you're highly qualified.
Yeah.
How does that affect a person's drive to study or to,
It's discouraging. It really is discouraging. I mean, there's one of my friends, he wanted to apply for veterinarian. Yes, veterinarian. And they don't take white males. It's impossible to come in as a white male. It's impossible. They
This is interesting. That means they may take white females, but the numbers will be decreased. And this is the diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this is why you should be against all this equity hiring. So apparently the quota does not allow any white males, but it will allow for few white females. But everybody else has to be quote-unquote South African. Because keep in mind, you might be looking at it as, some of you in Africa may be looking at it as a white and black thing, but it also affects other Africans. Because if you are a Nigerian, you go to South Africa, this is the same treatment you are going to get. If you are from other parts of Africa, you go to South Africa, this is the same treatment you are going to get. Obviously, the white man is treated worse, but there's a class system of poor treatment and oppression that is met out for everybody based on their demographic, apparently. And this is now being built into this new South African system. This new South Africa that is being built, which is sad.
really even take males, but even less white people. A white male will not, his application won't go through.
What kind of laws are there to non-discriminatory against white people? Is there anything to protect white people's, because they talk about inclusion, but it sounds like white people are being excluded.
Of course, the whole invention of inclusion was to exclude Christians, especially white Christians, white male Christians, white street Christians. The more normal you are, the worse it gets for you. That's the whole point of inclusion. And that's why I do not like that word. You have to understand these code words and who uses it and what it means. Like they use the word inclusion in Nigerian politics now. I'm like, where are the white people? What do you mean by inclusion? And it's not like we have a problem of so many people who say they are gay or want to live gay and all of that. So when you say inclusion in Nigeria, what does that mean? And there's the thing about what I said before about the globalists. That is a globalist language. The white globalists, this is their language. They are the ones who invented all of this and put this forth. And they have their goal and what they are trying to create. And part of what they are trying to create and the outcome of some of the things they do, create situations where certain people who they may not have even intended to be their enemy have to be their enemy. Or they put themselves in a series, like for example, during the lockdowns, they demonized part of the push by the globalists and the leftists, the white leftists and white liberals, where like if you are against taking the injection, during the lockdown, that you are a racist. But then, quote unquote, black people and some BLM people now rose up and now cited another instance where the government, forced a lot of quote unquote black people to take injection previously in an experiment, and how it ruined the whole community, and the adverse, the whole problem of that. They were basically used as guinea pigs, and they started protesting against it. So it created a situation where, what can you do? During that 2020 situation, you have the white liberals, they want to push the rhetoric that everybody must stay 6 feet apart and all of that nonsense they're doing. But then Black Lives Matter wants to protest. And it comes out to protest because they have put Black Lives Matter as, oh, these are the oppressed. They can't go against them. So they had to chill and let them protest. Because because what they have created, the outcome has created another problem that if they react to it a certain way, it's a problem. So they couldn't go against BLM and stop BLM from protesting and burning things in the streets. Even though they have put prior to that, everybody must stay 6 feet, everybody must stay in their houses, must stay locked up, no going out. But you are the same people that have said anybody that oppose quote unquote black movements and all of that is racist and all of that. So yeah, we are riding that way. So they couldn't go against Black Lives Matter and stop Black Lives Matter from the rioting, or stop Black Lives Matter when the Black Lives Matter chapter stood up against the injection. So you can see there's those kinds of unintended conflicts. So it could be that the white South African is just a casualty. But let's not forget that the white globalists have the power to change the fate of the white South African. A lot of the laws, a lot of the control on Africa that is keeping Africa down is from those white globalists and the World Health Organization, the World Bank, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, the World Economic Forum. These people that have these laws and are putting things like look at the president of France and his dealings with Burkina Faso. Everything he has said about Burkina Faso have shown you that Traoré is doing what is right, and France has been doing everything to keep Burkina Faso down and exploited. And that's the relationship with a lot of African nations. So when you see all these relationships with France and Nigeria, it's bad news for Nigeria because France is a nation that exploits, the government exploits. So we have to be wise and separate, this is what these people are doing. We have to know who our friend is and who our enemy is. You can't demonize all white people, but you cannot ignore the white people that are doing wrong. You have to be just with it and be honest with it, so that there won't be injustice on either side. And the goal is to get to a place where we all love each other and treat each other with respect, and we don't see color anymore. We judge people by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. That is the goal.
No laws that is protecting.
It's a shame that all that we thought we saw Nelson Mandela fight for has all been destroyed. Change has regressed. Nelson Mandela had an era of, he put an era of a rainbow nation, everybody, different colors, different people, but one people. That was Nelson Mandela's thing. That was what he seems to have promoted. But after his past, it's like we now see a different color and a different shade to South Africa. All we see is racism, against everybody that is not quote unquote natively South African, whatever that means. And we have just learned that the people, even before the South Africans, there was the Xhosa, the quote unquote Bushmen that were there. So it is not even the South Africans themselves, they are not even the original owners of that land.
Just white people. No, there's no laws just for white people. There's only laws for, they talk about people of color, like the BEE laws. it is you have to have a quota in your business of you have to have this amount of people of color in your business.
So you see, the government, using the government to create quotas. This is why I say Christians should be in politics. When people can create laws, this diversity, equity, and inclusion and quota system puts in the politics itself. I was talking about using, in this video, I was talking about using giant corporations like Vanguard and, BlackRock. Like if it was a Christian that owned such companies, I was running such things, the good we could do. But now we are seeing a situation where the government itself is the one that is creating the laws that are doing all this quota thing and this racist stuff. Oh, you have to have this percent of this race. Oh, you have to have this percent of the people in this demographic. So it is basically communism. The government controlling the factors of production, what to produce, who to produce, and for what to produce. Because by putting all these things in place, you are essentially pulling the strings and creating incentives and creating possibilities on who can produce what, where and when. So it's a trick to turn a capitalist nation into a communist nation through legislation. That's what this diversity, all these quota systems and inclusion and stuff, this diversity, equity, and inclusion is.
So that is the BEE law. There's been robberies at our house. I've been attacked while I was driving. A guy came with a knife and I had to give him my phone. That happens all the time. I know, everyone that I know has been robbed in some way in South Africa. And yeah, but I personally don't know about anyone who has been killed. Well, I do actually. I don't know the person well, but I do know about someone who's been shot while he was driving. He had to pull over because he had a flat tire and he got shot. Like I said, it wasn't friends of ours, but we knew the guy. He had 3 daughters and a wife, and they shot him. They didn't take the bakkie. They didn't even take his phone. They just shot him, and he died. So they're all.
But when they are fueling a lot of hatred against white people, and all white people are looked upon as, you are an invader. You came here, you took our land. You oppressed us. We need to get our get back. We need to get our revenge. So that's what it is. So you can imagine the tension and the hatred. So at what point does it now boil over, and then on what sparks a trigger or pulls that string, the last thread that just make a lot of people en masse just go on the attack on any white person in sight. That's why I think South Africa is completely unsafe for anybody that is white. And they should think of leaving.
A lot of laws against white people, but everyone is suffering.
People need to start thinking of creating their own havens, places that is for them, and they need to restrict migration of other races into these places. But you see, what I just said, the number one people that will oppose me are the quote-unquote white leftists. So understand this reality. The people that are actually helping to create these hardships for white people, the people who have a lot of power to stop it, and the people that are doing things that are aiding and abetting it are actually white people, specifically people on the left, the leftist liberals, the woke folks, the globalists, and they have power that sadly Christians do not have, good people do not have, because we focused on the wrong things. We left power for the devil to take. So it's sad. It's sad. Imagine even look at all the leftist influencers, all the leftists on social media, all the popular, even the Hollywood celebrities. If someone says, white people should think about having their own cities or their own nations and restrict migration of other races into those spaces, it'd be like, oh, that is so racist, how can you say so, blah. They will come down on you and fight against you. But keep in mind, when they keep on letting migration into these places, it's going to lead to the deaths eventually of white people, because there will be discrimination against white people. And when it starts, like you can see in this case of South Africa, you are at the mercy of, you have no power. What can you do? So it's not going to stop. You are dealing with people that super hate you, and they would not stop until you no more exist. And keep in mind, white people are not even having children. Back in the day, white people have 2 or 3 children, and that was the order of the day. But that is sad, especially in a time when you are dealing with immigrants that believe in polygamy. A woman, when a woman is pregnant, she's pregnant for 9 months. Now you have somebody who is a Muslim that has multiple wives, or comes from whatever culture that may not even Muslim, that has more wives than a Muslim is allowed to have, and then that person, at every given time, every year a baby is born, even every month a new baby is born, to their family. So what now happens to the population? Look at the situation with Nigeria. The North has a lot of power in Nigeria because the North has a lot of population, because they multiply. The South are normally Christians, but the North, all of them are polygamous. So when you look at the numbers, they are just giving birth to children, giving birth to children, giving birth to children. So there are multiple millions upon millions of people. So when it comes to voting, the Northerners, the Muslims, they have all the power because they have the population. They are the ones that are marrying multiple women and giving birth to, a family with 12 children is a small family. They have families with 50 children, 80 children, 90 children. All of these people, imagine what happens when it comes time to vote. And for other things, everybody has to bow to them. And keep in mind, there's a portion of the scripture that says, about a man who has many children, that he will not be ashamed to face his enemy at the gate. There is an advantage of having many children. And it's unfortunate that we have believed so many lies that have told us that no, we should have a small number of children. No, it's advantageous for you to have many children. And also we have believed the lie that, it takes so much money to raise children. No, if it's taking too much money to raise children, it is how you choose to raise them. And it's actually, that problem only comes with an educational system that is expensive. Imagine a situation where the education is free, or perhaps you own the school, or education is not compulsory. There are so many different factors. Now you can have 200 children, 300 children. That's an entire village, all loyal to you, all part of your vision, all you are setting them on the trajectory that you want to set them. Now if you say that is crazy and you're not doing that, think about the other person that is doing that. The day that you and him have to stand at the gate against each other, he is going to win. He has the numbers. He's going to destroy you. And in politics, any voting situation, he has the influence and all the power. You have nothing, because you chose to have 2, 3 children with your one wife. So all these things need to be taken into account, and that's why the white population, is in dire trouble, and that's why they need to consider creating havens for themselves, cities or states or countries, and then make sure that the population is kept over 90% white. There's a wisdom in that. If you may have thought that was racist before, with all the things happening now, and you see how people are behaving and where things are going, you see that it is important. Unless you want white people to be extinct, and that is not going to be an improvement, because then you imagine the people who are running Africa and cannot create a successful African nation in spite of all the resources Africa has. Now you put them in charge of, them now take over Western nations that don't even have much resources. Do you think they'll do a better job? They'll do a terrible job. So it is all of humanity going backwards, civilization wise.
There's a lot of poverty in South Africa. The townships, that is mostly black. It is a black lower class. There's a lot of crime in there. People get killed every day because of the poverty. Everyone is suffering. So the whole country, actually the only people that is not suffering is the government, people in government. I don't even want to drive there anymore. They mugged me just when I was on my way here. Not today, but they mugged me on my way here. You can't drive with your windows open.
So how are we going to build a nation if we're not having enough births?
After our time at the monument, we drove to a white farmer's land who has taken it upon himself.
I wonder why she called the conversation when that person talked about not having enough births. And it's interesting that I was talking about birth rate of white people before, and that has come up in this conversation, but she cut off to this other part. But let's keep watching the video.
To employ.
And that shows her mentality, because a lot of white people in America still have that mentality of, oh, a woman should not have to have the pressure of having too many children, or consider the polygamy angle, and all of that. All of that is out of because of feminism. Feminism has done a lot to destroy women, and in the future a lot of women are going to suffer, especially during the tribulation period. And it is feminism that made it possible that and women should have, they should thank their precious feminism for it.
Feed, house, and care for other struggling Afrikaners.
Mostly unemployed people, but he's also got a tile fixing company.
I'm going to do a cultural school here, not on the syllabus of the government. They have a printing works, everything, so we get all the supplies and the books from them, and that's the syllabus we used. But I had to provide everything because the people, mostly the people here at my place, it's 80% of the people have no income. Not even a pension income. People with a pension, they pay a little bit towards the accommodation and meals, but those people got nothing. So they can't pay for schooling, they can't pay for the books, they can't pay for the teachers. I paid everything out of my own pocket. Even the homeschooling syllabus, we cannot afford it. It's too expensive. In the western side of Pretoria, it's the poorer side of Pretoria.
Yeah.
Every corner there was a Nigerian selling drugs, and there was a total morality fall of all people there. So we decided to bring the people out of that situation.
Now this is interesting that he's saying that on the street corner, this coming from a white South African, that they were Nigerians selling drugs. There's so much to be said about that. I haven't been to South Africa myself and seen this, but the hatred towards Nigerians in South Africa, it's crazy. Now, this is the first time I'm hearing a white person, a white South African, complain about Nigerians selling drugs in, South Africa. So I also cannot ignore that there must be, some truth to it. I can't ignore what comes from both sides. If you have been listening to this video, you hear that I talked about what the black South African sees from his perspective, as well as what the white South African sees from his perspective. So I will say this about that situation. Clearly, it is not possible that you can think that is how all Nigerians are, and that is what all Nigerians in South Africa do. And there is a question of how are you sure that they are Nigerians? But let us go off the assumption that they are Nigerians. We also have to bring into certain question and reality that as Nigeria has a lot of good, it also has a lot of bad. There are a lot of criminal organizations, a lot of cults. So some cults and gangs in Nigeria engage in pushing drugs, some engage in scams, some engage in, crypto scams, so there are different kinds of things. So there is a possibility that is the activity of one particular cult or group. That is, a cult that started in Nigeria that is actually has set up shop there. Because I know, like, in Italy, there are a lot of Nigerians there, and I think whether it's the Vikings or Black Axe that are now the foot soldiers for the mafia in Italy today. So there is that situation. So there's that strong possibility that it's just one or two Nigerian gangs or groups. And keep in mind that Nigerian gangs or cults are very big. They could have as much as 2 million members. Like the Pride Confraternity, if you are looking at how many members that they probably have over 5 million members. And if you count those who are dead, then we will say maybe 10 million or 50 million, since they started, or even more. If you are talking about since that fraternity or that cult started, or that gang started, we're talking about the pirates. But when you look at other ones like the Black Axe, even Davido is a member of Black Axe. So you have celebrities that are members of this cult. So when you look at all these situations, it's a strong possibility when it's such criminal organizations, set their sights on something like that, they can create that kind of a large impact on a nation. So that has to be addressed. Any Nigerian that is going to South Africa to commit crimes, that has to be addressed. Without a doubt. So it cannot and it should not be allowed to happen. But that is not a license for South Africans to hate all Nigerians, because the hatred is extended to all Nigerians. Keep it with the Nigerians that you are seeing there. If you want to dislike the Nigerians that are selling the drugs. Don't go and hate every single Nigerian in the world, which is what South Africans are doing. In the same way with this white situation, you want to have beef with the white people that took the land, the colonialists, not the descendants, or not all white people in general, and not the new immigrants, the new white immigrants that relocated to South Africa after the whole apartheid situation, that bought land and all of that. So you have to keep all these things in perspective.
Situation to a place where we can sort of control the environment, because this whole thing has a spiritual undertone. I started this because I got a message and I got a instruction from our Father to do that. I can't get anybody into heaven for him. Everybody has to do it himself, but I can create an environment that he can live where there's no drugs, there's no swearing, there's no people running around and sleeping with other one's wives and stuff like that. That I can control. And then
that sounds like cult activity, the behavior patterns and all of that. So and that says a lot. When there needs to be an addressing of the cult situation in Nigeria, within Nigeria itself, the cults and the gangs, and it's funny that people attack churches. These people, if these young people were in church or belong to a church, and they belong to Christian fellowships, were joining Christian groups, and being taught, and their minds were being renewed, and they were taught to be reasonable citizens, that would be they'll be set on a different path, not the cult path that will lead to them going outside Nigeria and disgracing the nation or disgracing their tribe, whatever Nigerian tribe they are individually from. So that is something you should keep in mind.
The people can get the spiritual food that they need. Again, I can't force them. It's a free will. Everything according to us. We don't believe in churches. I don't agree with any church. We believe the church is in your heart. That is a church that Jesus came and founded on earth. And the Heart's Church, people are there to help the ones who have lesser than us. If you do not grab the hand of Jesus Christ, you will not come free from drugs.
Yeah, amen.
And if you do grab his hand and you're serious, I saw terrible drug addicts. The one specific person was a transvestite. He was a male prostitute. And he came free from drugs within 2 weeks. And it's one of the worst ones, was heroin. And as he said to me, he said,
now I can start to understand the hatred towards Nigerians that some South Africans have. So if you see people from a different country coming and selling drugs to your people, and it's having this kind of cracking the 80s effects that's happened in America to your people, I can see where the resentment comes from, but you should understand that this is not all Nigerians. This is those Nigerians that are doing it, Don't put the blame of what one person is doing on an entire group of people. You know, and this is something that apparently will fall on deaf ears in the world where everything has to be black and white. Oh, it's either all white people are bad or all white people are good. So since you see you have to recognize the evil thing that certain white people have done, you now paint all of them bad, you know. And then since you have to recognize, you know, the pain or the oppression or the realities of slavery in the past, therefore all black people, quote unquote black people, are good, and every single thing they do in the future is good, and forever they are the victims, and forever the white man is the oppressor, no matter the reality of what is happening. Sad.
I can't sleep. It's the worst pain that is now happening in my body because I don't use it anymore. And that guy slept like a baby. Because my big problem on this farm is when I opened this farm, I always say Satan opened the bottle store right at my gate. So that is much easier now to get booze, and that is our problem. They supply supermarkets with frozen vegetables, so we get all the waste. And that is why we are farming with the bush pigs, because a bush pig can convert vegetable matter into meat. In the end of the day, that is what my calling was to get people to come to get them into heaven. So we especially are very helpful towards the children. There's about 120 children here in school going age and preschool. But on the other side,
and it's interesting that it's only those that we have a Christian worldview that will be peaceful about things, you know, and not seek violence. So people need to know that every other belief system, the atheist or any religion of the world out there, you know, it's always hate or violence. It's only the Christian that we always have, you know, can we reconcile, can we, you know, have peace kind of outlook to things.
One man went there.
And also, let me reach out to help my fellow man and all of that. That is so imbued into Christianity.
And he spoke to the guys, there's a lot of blacks.
Because God expects it for you, and that is how God will bless you, you know, when you look out for others.
At the bottle store there. And they were all robbing this whole area. Every night we on a group is robbing and whatever. And that he asked the guys there, why don't you rob the people on this side? With this farm. He said to him, no, boss. On those people's posts on their fence, there is big guys with white clothes. That's what he said. I didn't say that. It's a black guy who said it.
There is a spiritual element to these attacks.
All farm attacks is a spiritual element. The Sangoma blesses the AK-47s. It blesses the cars. It slaughters a goat or a chicken, depending on the guys, and the blood is sprinkled on it. Yes. I had a lot of contacts when I was in jail. I wasn't in jail. I was in jail working as a spiritual consultant. And I met a lot of the black guys that they said they do that before they go. So I counter that spiritually. It's not the flesh.
It's interesting, and people don't talk about the voodoo and all of that. This, when it comes to African religions and African gods, they are all about violence. And it's all about, you know, like the native doctors, oh, my neighbor is making money, I want to make more money than him. Oh, this person's business is prospering, I want to prosper more than them. It's always attacking others. It's never about making the world a better place or living peacefully with others and, you know, making something better. It's always about attacking others. So, you know, this comes as no surprise to me that they are actually doing, you know, African juju and all of that to their weapons, and before they go out on the missions and raids to attack the white farmers, you know. And this is why I talked about Christianity. For those of you who wonder why is he talking about Christianity so much and looking at Christianity as a solution, because you can see what is driving the other side. You know, Christianity is not Christianity without love. That is established in the Bible, you know, and that's what we are commanded to do. You know, Jesus said, I've not come to bring a new commandment. I've come to bring, you know, the commandment of love, you know, that you should love your neighbor as yourself, and, you know, all that. So love is, you know, the primary, you know, center of Christianity. As a matter of fact, it is written that God is love. That's how important love is in Christianity, So Jesus is love. God is love. So we worship love. If you're a Christian, that is it. So if you're a Christian and you don't have love in your heart, you are not a Christian. You just have books and words, and you have affiliation with a church or denomination at best, but you don't have God, because God is love. So if you do not have love in your heart, there's a problem. There's no God there in your heart. You don't respect God, you don't worship God, you don't honor God. And it comes as no surprise that with these guys that are always vengeful towards the whites, they're into the witchcraft stuff and all this African juju stuff. No surprise.
It's the spirit that they do this toy in. It's the Ubuntu spirit that we must attack. That is why we won't go. I believe I'm safe when I have Christ in me. That's my
So maybe
safety.
the youngsters that's here that
It's interesting that I say that is why I won't go. I believe that my safety is in Christ. That's an interesting way to look at it, and an interesting stance to take. Very interesting. Let's keep watching.
that has got a family, they can go and start anew now.
We are, I won't say proud people, but we are proud of our heritage, and this is where roots are lying for 400 years. So
that's true. Like I said before, it was still the same era and the same time that blacks were taken, quote unquote, blacks were taken as slaves to America. So if those in America, the quote unquote black Americans, could call themselves Americans, so those people can surely call themselves South Africans, because they have been in Africa for the same long number of years, 400 years.
no, you will never get me involved in those programs, but I'll help anybody to go and get a job there. Not the farmers so much. The farmers are the problem, because I tried numerous times to get white people onto their farms and change the black labor to white. But we have about 800,000 white people that are at the moment has got no work.
I guess the one thing that
This is interesting. This is an interesting outlook. I don't know if I can co-sign that, saying that the white farmers are the problem because they don't want to change the workforce of those farming to white. The question of remember what I said about controlling factors of production. Now, what about white people who are skilled in other things? What about white people who have dreams to be other things, not just farmers? And then you are now creating a situation that will work against you eventually. Because when you create a situation where all the farmers are white, and then whites are excluded from having a job in everything else, as they're already doing, they will soon come for the white farmers' jobs. Let's say, why are 90% or 100% of all the farmers whites? You also need to, it is discrimination. You also need to create equity and a quota system for there to hire quote unquote black people, because apparently there isn't one. That's why he can suggest such a thing. And it's interesting that the quote unquote black people in South Africa want to chase away the white farmers, but they don't want to do any farming themselves. And they didn't bother to even put quota systems on that, because they know that quote unquote black people don't want to have those jobs, at least now. But they put quotas on the number of whites that can be hired in other fields of and work. So they have put all the what they consider to be low-level jobs to be open for white people, and all the high-level jobs, quota systems, you have to have quote unquote people of color, specifically and normally, the people who are South African and all of that. So we see that problem here.
It sounded like it could be confused is that you said that your farm is protected and that it's not being attacked, and some people might hear that and be like, oh, well, Donald Trump is lying about the attacks on farmers. But it sounds like what you were saying is that you have done a service or prayer that protected your land, but the farm attacks are real, is guess what I'm asking.
Farm attacks are real. A lot of attacks, I'm not saying it's people that deserve it. A lot of attacks are good people, good God-fearing people. I don't know if they prayed for their place and whatever happened. I just know that we have a system and we are protected under that system. But the farm attacks are still, my own father nearly died under a farm attack. He was stabbed 35 times and left for dead. But he was a strong guy. He was in his late 70s and he survived it. So we are all, in our families, there's no one that doesn't know somebody that's been attacked in a farm attack.
20th of January 2020, 4 o'clock in the morning. We lived in a split-level house, so we had a gate from the living area to the bedroom area. We thought we were safe, but it was January, it was hot, so we left the window of the bedroom open. They came with a ladder, 4 o'clock in the morning. When I woke up, I was sitting on the side of the bed, holding my head, blood streaming down my face. Was later taken to hospital with 25 stitches in my head. You can, if you want to feel it.
Oh yeah, wow.
I was bleeding like a pig. That morning when I came back from hospital, my wife said, we're leaving today.
On the right we have these walk-in fridges. I have 7 of them, fridges and freezers.
So how big is this farm?
33 hectares. On the right-hand side is our bush pigs.
These are bush pigs.
We then drove around this massive farm where many Afrikaners live and work and stay productive during the days. And then a siren was going off because it was 4 o'clock, and that meant that it was time for a meal.
Supper.
I read online that 400,000 white people in South...
That is not living. That's kind of almost like a concentration camp of sorts, you know, that kind of where there is a bell or a siren that, you know, brings everybody in. So they have all those, that means they have that kind of security in addition to their prayers and, you know, God, you know, protecting them and all of that. That means they have other kinds of security measures, you know, they will have a siren for if there's a farm attack, if there is this and all of that. So they will have measures, preventative measures and security measures to protect themselves, you know. So that's interesting if they attack, but that is not how to live life. You know, that is not how to live life.
Africa live in settlements.
This is a food line basically. It's a food line basically.
Mense, Yeshua, dankie weer eens vir al die barmhartigheid, liefde, seëninge, Vader, vir dit wat ons so mildelik elke dag uit jou hand ontvang.
This situation, because since it's kind of like a fancy situation, what helps, because they are employing just white people, you know, based on what he said previously about, you know, the other farmers that they are fault because they are not bringing back white farmers. They are, you know, they are employing, you know, quote unquote black farmers, you know, because their workforce is not that. So this is a situation where the whole farm is just whites. You know, so it creates a situation where it's difficult if they see a black person come and it's like, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be here. So it's high alert. So it's difficult for there to be a farm attack because it's not open to people who are going to do the farm attack. You know, who are the rest of the people who are going to do the farm attack. That brings in a whole level of, you know, other questions, because now you are just creating an exclusive white area. And that's the only way for you to be safe. And you understand why that is, because that's the only way for him to be safe, you know. So, and him advising us to do that, that is why I say that if he does that and if that starts happening, the government will now say that, oh, the farmers are only employing white people. So this thing can, all it takes is one law, one legislation to destroy everything that he has built. And this is why I keep emphasizing about Christians and politics. When you are not controlling politics and you are not involved, if we are not running that, we left the place for the devil. So the devil and his kids can just one law to destroy so much and cause so much harm and damage.
Seën asseblief vir ons die voedsel aan ons liggame, seën die mense wat dit aan ons geskenk het. Ons nooi je uit om die eter saam met ons te geniet. Dankie Yeshua. Amen. Amen. May it be punished.
What's your name? Do you speak English? This is the camera. Yeah. Do you like Spider-Man? Yes. Can you show me like a psh? Psh. Yeah, this one's not on. It's off. What do you and your brother like to do for fun?
I like to play rugby.
What, rugby? Oh, that's cool. How many brothers or sisters do you have?
I have 2 sisters and 2 girls.
It was pretty shocking to see this mom and her kids and other children running around. Also, the people in this line look very motivated and they look willing and able to work, and it's very sad that they're not given the opportunities in their country. Makes me kind of feel like privilege isn't just about being white.
Yes, yes. No, definitely.
Make sure you are subscribed. See you next time. Bye.
Say this prayer audibly if you've not given your heart to Jesus Christ. Dear God, I believe in my heart that Jesus Christ, the Son of God, came, died, and was raised from the dead to save me. I confess Him, Lord, over my life and ask You to give me Your Holy Spirit to live within me. I receive Your Spirit by faith and thank You for I am now born again. In Jesus' name, amen. If you just prayed that prayer, congratulations, you're now a Christian. Go to alfred.vip and get resources that will help you with your work with God.